question, let's talk about the visual effects and improvements a bit. What was the most challenging class to revamp from a visual standpoint, and what influenced your design choices and how you went about with the combat revamp?
So I was not directly involved in that, so I couldn't tell you specifically which class was the most difficult. However, I can tell you from kind of the playtest and secondhand experience that Rogue went through a lot of iteration to get things right, and getting the mix of kind of what you can get away with during that short time frame for something to feel snappy, and kind of to make those moves feel brutal. I know that some of the things that we tried early on looked really, really good when you had a static
Like a screenshot.
Yeah, and then once you start seeing like a mob kind of that can move around and a player that can move around, maybe like things didn't line up correctly.
Right.
So we tried other things. But we're really, really happy with the way that Rogue ended up. So it was worth it in the end to have that iteration.
I think they all got quite a bit of love, but I know that the Warrior probably had the furthest to go in terms of where it was and where it ended up. So I think that's probably the one for me that stood out the most.
Cool. So as a follow-up, it seemed that Melee got a lot more love than some casters in this round. Are there any plans to do like a caster spell effect revamp in the future?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
We felt like doing it in stages would make the most sense. We also kind of wanted to, the Melee needed it probably the most.
Right.
So I wanted to start there, kind of see how the reception was on it, but we do have plans to hit the casters next.
Cool. So a general question about class fantasy. Were there any classes or specs that was a challenge to come up with the artifact lore for? And what was the process of determining a class's fantasy, especially for classes that seem kind of light, like warriors, for example? I don't think people would associate warriors with the Halls of Valor prior to, Legion and Chronicles, but it works.
Sure. So a couple of things that were, one of them, in some cases, right, we had the artifact idea, and it quite didn't match what we had in the gameplay. So I'll bring one example that was really interesting. Early on when we were trying to figure out what an artifact should mean in Legion, we were thinking, well, this is the third time that the Legion has threatened Azeroth. How did we beat them before? What we need are weapons that were used, like say in War of the Ancient, wielded by great heroes, and probably that killed demons,
Yeah.
And one weapon that came up was Eagle Spear. We're like, awesome. Wait, hunters don't use spears. What are we going to do? And so we put that one on the shelf for a little bit, and then separately, we started to chase class fantasy of making every spec true to what that fantasy should be. And we revamped Survival Hunter to be melee, and then we had this great artifact just like ready, to set up there. So that's one example of one that not necessarily difficult, but that it didn't match at the time, but later on, we didn't force it, and then later on we made it work. Another similar one was we couldn't quite give Death Knight's Frostmourne, right? I mean, that was blown up into a million pieces and to never be seen again. So I think it was a really, really interesting solution in terms of fulfilling the fantasy of I am a mini Lich King, I'm following in the footsteps of Arthas, but it was a little bit of a challenge because, hey, for a while we went back and forth and like, well, what if it wasn't really this? What if, if it, and none of that actually passed muster, really, so.
Cool. I've got some questions about Demon Hunters. What do you hope people take away and learn about Demon Hunters from the starting experience? And, monks, when they came out, they were a new class, and they're a bit underrepresented now. How do you ensure that a healthy number of players pick up and main Demon Hunters?
Well, so a couple of things, right? What I think players should take away from the kit of the class, from the sort of like the world outlook of the class is they will fight fire with fire by any means necessary. So that means that taking players from here, where they saw Demon Hunters, specifically Illidan and the Illidari, as bad guys, to here, where they understand and they see where they fit in the rest of the world. We don't care if people spit on us, we don't care if people call us like bad guys, villains, traitors, whatever. We will do whatever it takes to beat the Legion. And later on, you will find out why they're so extreme, why they see no other choice, right? So story-wise, that's what we want players to take away, to understand what it means to be a Demon Hunter. Gameplay-wise, what I really think people will start taking away from there is, it's a really fun, visceral class to play.
Yeah.
It's really fun, gratifying to move around, to like have those mobility abilities, and to have a really snappy set of kind of combat abilities. But then the second layer beneath that is that kind of similar how like Hearthstone is very deceiving in terms of like it takes a while to get good at Hearthstone and really hard. It's a long tail to master it. Similar to that, I think players will find that Demon Hunter feels deceptively simple because it's intuitive and has fewer buttons. But I think like once they see what really good Demon Hunter players start doing, they'll be like, oh wow, there's a lot of depth to this class.
Cool.
That's funny because like half my guild is fighting over who's going to be our Demon Hunter main next expansion.
You should be able to accommodate a couple of them at least, right? Like they can be
Like-
great tanks,
Like
great DPS.
we're losing both our tanks, 2 healers, 3 main DPS. It's a problem.
Well, the other thing to consider is I think we're going to see a lot of people playing multiple characters here in Legion because
Yeah.
there's a lot of class-specific content that you'll get to see.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very alt friendly. I mean, just being able to go in and get an artifact for each of your alts and a completely different quest line for that. I mean, I have like 6, 7 alts now, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's a nice change from
Yeah.
Warlords.
I had a few questions about pacing. So, is the schedule for Legion on like a Mist of Pandaria time frame ideally, or Warlords, or something else? And also, for new players, we've seen some hotfixes go out recently for leveling. Are there more changes, sweeping changes are on the way for newer players that, don't even know about Legion and content?
Well, I think we recognize that we could have done better in terms of Warlords and providing content either more frequently or at least not have as long a gap without updates. So it's definitely something we plan to address with Legion. As to how that will be structured, a lot of that depends on what we feel is the right content to roll out. We don't want to put the designers on some kind of a schedule where it's like, okay, every 3 months, give them something. Instead, we want to look at each thing that's contemplated, figure out what's the best timing for this. But the nice thing about it is, they put in a lot of nice systems for replayability, for continued play after 110. It isn't just a treadmill of, okay, you're going to go right into raids. I mean, you can go in and play World Quests, you can get really significant gear by doing Mythic Dungeons or Challenge Mode, so you have a lot of options available to you once you've hit 110.
Cool. Yeah, just going back to the leveling question, sort of for newer players, like all these movie players coming, are there any big leveling changes on the way to make the experience more engaging or smoother?
We did,
Yeah.
if you've seen recently, we
Yeah.
have made some changes to at least make that leveling not quite so aggressive as it has been in the past. It's always difficult as we develop new systems to resist the temptation to go in and just change everything, and spend all of our time there. So what we've done is we rolled out scaling zones for Broken Isles, and that allows me to say a level 102 to play with you as a level 108, and we still get a great experience. The world's scaling to us, so I'm not underpowered, you're not overpowered, and we're going to evaluate, how that works, and that may be a system that we might want to, consider for the rest of the world. But that's not something that we're going to put out immediately because we obviously want to see it in a contained world where we go from 1 to 110 and then start application.
Cool. I guess we have time for one more. We're good?
Yeah, no, we definitely have time for one more. I was looking at I'm not prepared for this.
Okay. Just if you could talk a bit about some of the lessons learned from Warlords of Draenor that have been taken account into a Legion, and I'm specifically interested in changes to the reward structure because there seems to be like so much item variation and RNG all over the place.
Well, one of the big lessons for us was that dungeons, we really didn't do dungeons justice in Legion. I mean, the dungeons were great, but they were kind of obsolete too quickly. And we all wanted to keep playing them, but we had no reason to. So
That's in Warlords?
in Warlords, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, maybe I misspoke. I mean, did I say?
You did, but I just
Oh,
want to make
sorry.
sure the viewers weren't. I got you.
Yes. So
It's the internet.
yes.
Be
So-
accurate.
So in Legion, right, like we definitely took a pass on the reward structure to make sure that, like we didn't just have Warforged, but things can upgrade quite a ways all the way into like rating tiers and stuff like that. Another lesson that we took was basically what you alluded to earlier with the schedule with patches, and anytime our players feel the pain, we feel it too because we play the game as well. I mean, maybe the one saving grace is like for us is we're automatically invited into the beta, so we can play the beta, but we still feel it in terms of like what stuff there is to do in the live game. And like John said, we definitely are going to address it with the way that the game is structured and what there's how evergreen stuff there is to do, how much of that there is to do. But we're also looking at just the reward schedule for that. And then in terms of itemization, we also added other. I don't know if this is a lesson or not, but we felt like kind of only looking at eye levels wasn't interesting enough as a progression. So we also added legendaries that have interesting effects, and you'll be able to pair legendaries up with other legendaries or with specific relics that augment powers. And we kind of like that gameplay from Diablo. We like that idea that something exciting could drop and change the way that I play. So we're introducing that.
What's your favorite legendary? I like going through all of them and like researching the flavor text or seeing which ones were like references to certain.
I was bummed when the Diablo one got taken out. The wizard one. What was it
What was
called?
the Diablo
Oh God,
one?
it's the
It's
same
the
one as
shaman
the.
one. Firebird?
No, it was the one that had the same name as the set that, like when you use 2 elemental, it does something, and then you use 2 fire, and it does something. It was a shaman ability.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. It used to be. It's still in the game. They just renamed it, but it was
I
the
like the
exact
shoulders
same
after
name
the
as the
T&D
set.
Peel skit. That was funny.
What were those?
It was the Death Knight ones, and it was a spoof about football players that had names that were difficult to pronounce, and they used one of the names as one of the shoulders.
So I don't remember the name, what the final name of this one was, but it was essentially a cheat death for, trying to remember what it was. I don't remember, but I die a lot, so I like that one. So
There's a paladin one too that's really good, that if you pair it with the talent, you can use your lay on hands like every minute and 30 seconds if you have the legendary and the talent.
that sounds awesome. And part of what that gameplay that I like is like, if you're a paladin, you'll be like, oh man, I really want to get this, and you're playing the game and hoping that drops, and all of a sudden something else drops that kind of changes your
It's
journey.
exactly how, it's one of the things I really like about Diablo. I was really excited about
Exactly.
And
It
then
makes
that in
theory
turn, like, will
crafting more
strengthen
fun
your
too.
talent choice if picking a certain talent plays well with
Yep.
your
Yeah,
legendary.
super cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.